Hey guys, so a couple days ago I re-uploaded my old Manga review, which has since been blocked worldwide for whatever reason. And the same thing happened with my fairy tale video. Kind of a shame because that was, one of my, I don't know, most iconic videos at the time. It's about 3 years old now, but I do feel like most of my opinions on this series remain the same. Anyway, here it is for people to enjoy, or maybe not enjoy, depending on who they are. And just to give you an update, my recovery is going pretty well, and I should be back to making videos around the start of August, so I will see you guys then.
I'm gonna go hang myself now.
Hey guys, welcome to my long-awaited review for the entirety of Fairy Tail. Now, if you've been watching my channel for the past couple months, you're probably just expecting me to just completely body the shit out of Fairy Tail. But here's the thing, I did want to give Fairy Tail a fair chance, so if you didn't know, I did go back recently and reread the entire series, just so everything about the story was fresh in my mind. I could analyze it, judge it as an entire product. And you may be surprised that I actually do have a few positive things to say, but, let's just get into it. Fairy Tail is a fantasy shonen battle manga written and illustrated by the legend himself, Hiro Mashima, and it was serialized between 2006 and 2017 in Weekly Shonen magazine. The world of Fairy Tail takes place in the kingdom of Fiore, a place where 10% of the population has magical abilities. They are known as wizards. Now, if you are a wizard, you have the option to join a wizard guild, a gathering place of sorts for all different types of wizards who are looking for work. People will put in requests to a guild if they need a wizard's help with anything, and this is how wizards make their living. But as you would expect, not everyone uses their magical abilities for good, and, of course, dark guilds are a thing. Now, while most guilds are affiliated with the Magic Council, which is sort of the whole government of mages and wizards who look after everything, make sure everything's going well. But yeah, the dark guilds don't follow their rules, they go off do their own thing, usually some pretty shady stuff. There's a lot of ancient evil magic in this world that they keep, dabbling in. So the story of Fairy Tail mainly focuses on one magic guild, Fairy Tail, their adventures, and their struggles against dark guilds and other ancient evils. One of our protagonists is 17-year-old Lucy Heartfilia, who is a celestial spirit mage. She has the ability to use special magic keys to open up a gate to another dimension and summon spirits to help her fight. The series starts with her wanting to join a magic guild like Fairy Tail, and as luck would have it, she runs into our other protagonist, Natsu Dragneel, who is a member of Fairy Tail. Now, Natsu is a fire dragon slayer. He uses fire magic, but what sets him apart from other mages is that he actually has the power to kill a dragon. And he learned this power from his adopted father, who actually was a dragon. He starts the series looking for his father because 7 years before the events of the series, all of the dragons mysteriously vanished from the world and no one has seen one since. So after he meets Lucy, he takes her to the guild where she meets a whole bunch of different characters. You have Grey Fullbuster, an ice wizard who is one of Natsu's biggest rivals. You have Urza Scarlet, who's the strongest female member of the guild, and she's definitely a force to be reckoned with. I also forgot to mention Natsu's cat companion, Happy, a little blue cat that follows him everywhere. He's there for like the entire series, so you better get used to him. As this is an extremely long-running series, it follows a bunch of different story arcs, each with, their own main characters, their own villains. But for a while, the series just focuses on these few characters going on adventures, running into some problems with some dark guilds and some other evil dudes. It's a battle manga, so it's full of action, crazy magic shit is going down. But eventually, you do learn of an alliance of dark guilds who are trying to revive the evil dark wizard Zareth, the main antagonist of the series. Now, once Zareth shows up, things get thrown all out of whack. Now it is up to Lucy, Natsu, Happy, and all of their friends at Fairy Tail to put a stop to his evil doings. Alright, so Fairy Tail is a super long series, and first I just want to talk about the first 200 chapters. Because as a shonen battle manga, these first 200 chapters, they're serviceable. Now, it's really nothing special, but I do think there are a lot of things to enjoy about this part of the series. For one, I actually really like the world of Fairy Tail. I love its take on, magic, wizards, how all this stuff works. I think a lot of the characters at first have a lot of charm. They're really likable. I like their interactions with each other. In fact, I actually think the best parts of this series are the transitions between all of the different arcs, where you can see the characters hanging out at the guild, just being themselves, screwing around with each other. And a good bit of the story arcs in these first 200 chapters were pretty enjoyable. Now, some of them were definitely more enjoyable than others. Some of them were meh, there were a couple stinkers, but overall I'd say a majority of these first 200 chapters consisted of story arcs that I enjoyed. They had fun stories, some pretty awesome looking action scenes, and there were a bunch of hints sprinkled in at the future of this series, you know, that really get you excited to see what Hiro Mashima has in store for the future. You see, all of this only applies to the first 200 chapters. The problem is the fairy tale is 545 chapters long. And for the entire rest of the series, there was not a single story arc that I enjoyed. Was it completely void of any redeeming moments? No, I will admit that there were some pretty good moments throughout the rest of the series, but the problem is they're so few and far between, just sprinkled in through this gigantic cesspool of shit. So what is wrong with Fairy Tail? Where do I even begin? After a while, the story arcs do seem to get pretty repetitive. It usually just consists of Fairy Tail and some of their allies going against a bunch of evil dudes. They have to take all of them out, then fight the main evil dude. Then Natsu will be beaten to near death. He thinks of his friends, he gets a power up, then he makes quick work of the villain. It was fine the first couple times it happened, but it starts to get a bit ridiculous. The fights start to feel just a bit boring after so many of them. It isn't very often the characters unlock new abilities to make things a bit more interesting, and when they do, it's usually just a cheap way to end the fight. There's just a lot of really bad and lazy writing during the fights, you know, which isn't a very good thing considering the series is shonen battle manga. It's mostly fights. Like I said, it usually resorts to, you know, a bullshit friendship power-up or, you know, a one-shot. There's very few really awesome, satisfying fights in this series. There are a few, but honestly, not too many I can think of. So yeah, a lot of friendship in this series, and honestly, I don't mind friendship in a shonen battle manga. I mean, if I minded, I probably wouldn't like most shonen battle manga. And people always bring this up, you know, stuff like One Piece, Dragon Ball, all this shit has friendship, what gives? Why don't you like it in Fairy Tail? You see, there's a difference between being motivated by your friends and getting an actual physical power-up just from thinking about your friends. Stuff like this really shouldn't work, and if you want to argue, oh well, it's a fantasy series, friendship can turn into magic, you don't know that. That's weird because it seems like friendship magic only works for the main characters. I mean, if it worked for anyone else, they'd pretty much be fucked. I think one of the problems Hiro Mashima has to resort to using these, you know, fake, cheap tactics to end fights is because he oftentimes writes the villains to be way more powerful than they should be, and it comes to the point where it's pretty much impossible for the characters to take out the villain without resorting to an ass pull. Another huge criticism I have is that oftentimes after these story arcs, it feels like nothing has changed because there are pretty much never any consequences for anything. I'm sure you've all heard the criticism before, but pretty much no one dies in this series. Now, it's common for villains to die and stuff, but I mean, you know, the main character is the entire guild of Fairy Tail, which, by the way, is made up of a shit ton of characters. You could easily kill a few of them throughout the series. But here's the thing, if you're not going to kill off many characters, I don't usually mind. I don't think you oftentimes need to kill off characters to, you know, get your point across, to have good character development. But the problem with Fairy Tail, and I think the reason why people always complain about the lack of deaths, is because Mashima keeps teasing us with them. There are so many death fake-outs in this series that it's kind of unbelievable. I honestly think I should have counted how many times there's a death fake-out in Fairy Tail, because it is so horrendous. And this isn't just like, oh, we didn't see them get hit, are they alright? We'll find out in the next chapter. No, this is like getting pierced through your fucking heart, you know, face completely going blank, everyone screaming, crying, oh my god, they're dead! And then immediately after, they're just like, oh, never mind, we just healed you with healing magic, we're all good. It creates so much false suspense because no matter how crazy things get, you know, they'll be fine after the arc, they'll be completely healed. You see, I'm mainly talking about the fights. God, there's just so much about the narrative is a mess and doesn't work. They introduce time travel and it makes absolutely no sense. They try to use the rules of a linear time travel story, but also introduce rules of a multiverse time travel story. There are plot points introduced that seem cool, that go absolutely nowhere, and everything I've mentioned all comes together at the peak colossus of shit known as the final arc. The final arc in Fairy Tail is over 10 volumes long. It's about 12 volumes or so. And it is, honest to God, the worst thing I've ever read in a manga series. Period. Not only does it have an overabundance of the problems I talked about earlier, you know, friendship power-ups, ass pulls, death fake-outs. There's honestly like a death fake-out every 5 chapters in the final arc. But everything that the series has been building up to, all of the crazy plot points, all of the mysteries, you know, the dragons, the villains, you have Zeref, just everything falls completely flat. All of the villains are wasted, all the good characters completely ruined, all of these really interesting plot lines completely dead. It is just an absolute shit stain on a series that honestly did have a lot of potential. Even before the final arc, it did have the potential to get better and have an exciting climax. But none of that happened. It was also extremely rushed. It really just feels like Mashima was done with the series. He wanted to end it. So many things get left unanswered, and the final fight of the series is probably one of the worst ones I've ever seen. And wouldn't you know, at the ending of the series, no fucking consequences. It's like nothing even mattered. That was just the story. That was just the story, guys. We have to talk about the characters now. So we have the protagonists, Natsu and Lucy. You know, they're serviceable. They're a bit generic, but I do think they have, you know, enough that sets them apart, makes them unique. And honestly, same with all the other members of the guild. You know, they fit into different personality tropes, but overall I do think that they have enough personality, enough character that sets them apart, makes them actually really memorable. I can remember all the names of the guild members, and I don't think I'll be forgetting anytime soon. They had very clear personalities. And like I said before, the interactions between all of these characters are some of the more enjoyable moments of the series. The problem is there is very little character development in this series. Like I said, when I finished reading this series, the final chapter, and I saw all the characters there, it didn't feel like they had changed as people at all. They went through all this crazy shit, all these crazy fights where they were near death multiple times, but it just feels like it didn't even happen. Now, there are a few exceptions. One of, and honestly probably the best character in the series, is Gajeel. He is an Iron Dragon Slayer, so he has powers similar to Natsu. He was a really awesome character when he was introduced in one of the better story arcs in the series, and he does go through some noticeable development, and I do think that through all the shit that happens, he remains one of the more likable characters. I also like Makarov, who was the guild master of Fairy Tail. I pretty much always loved his character through it all, except for the very ending. Then I just wanted him to shut the fuck up and die. You see, the story just goes on for so long. We sit through so much shit with these characters that you eventually just start to hate them. Gray and Urza especially. Like, I thought those characters were cool at first. Gray just ended up being super fucking annoying, and Urza, honestly, she's one of my least favorite characters in manga at this point. Mainly because she's basically God. She can do anything. No consequences. You could like chop her up into bits and pieces and she could still fucking split the world in two. As for the villains, now of course there are multiple villains for, you know, each story arc, but you got the two main ones. You have Zeref, who's the evil dark wizard who's been around for centuries. And then you have Acnologia, who is a dragon, an evil dragon, the only dragon left, who was introduced about halfway through the series. Now, at first, when both of these characters are built up, and they're built up for a while, because they don't actually, like, you know, show up full force until much, much later into the series, they're pretty fucking badass. I'm not gonna lie. It's one of the reasons why myself and so many others kept reading the series, because you really wanted to see what's gonna happen when Fairy Tail finally clashes with these two insanely powerful foes. But they finally do, and it's complete dog shit, very, very horrible, especially for Acnologia. Okay, I was excited. I wanted to learn more about Acnologia. I wanted to know what his deal was. And aside from the very bare minimum, we learned nothing about Acnologia, a completely one-dimensional villain. Not only was it horrendous, but it was extremely disappointing because I had so many high hopes for Acnologia. Now, the series is really too big for me to touch on many other characters, but, you know, to summarize, a lot of really interesting characters at first. I liked a lot of them, but near the end, I pretty much wanted all of the characters to just shut the fuck up forever. Okay, so I'm acting like all of Fairy Tail is just a complete travesty, absolute dog shit, horrendous pile of garbage. And yeah, kind of is, but let's talk about one of the more consistently good aspects of this manga, and that is the artwork. Because honest to God, putting everything aside, the artwork in Fairy Tail is pretty fucking great. Hiro Mashima is known for being a very fast artist. He can usually finish a chapter in a couple days, and it's just really impressive. All the artwork looks super clean, super slick. The character designs are really cool. The action scenes, while the writing for them may be shit, usually look pretty awesome. Some of the backgrounds are also very detailed. The magic looks cool. All the effects look cool. It's really the only aspect of this series that I have almost nothing but praise for. Almost nothing, because I'm sure, as most of you know, Mashima, he's a bit of a horn dog. Yeah, there is a lot of fan service in this series, a lot of female characters with massive breasts, a lot of male characters who are constantly have no shirt on. And if it's the type of thing that bothers you, then stay the fuck away from this. I'm the type of person who usually doesn't get bothered by fan service, but even here, like, there are just some times where it gets a bit ridiculous. Like, some of the shots are literally set up underneath girls' skirts for no reason. Characters are constantly losing clothes, getting blown off by magic attacks. And when you're in the middle of an intense fight, you know, just seeing Lucy naked for the 500th time can really take you out of it. Not that you were probably really invested in the first place, but, you know, still a distraction. But it is what it is. You'll decide for yourself whether or not you want to put up with it. And there you go. Those were my thoughts on Fairy Tail. Feels kind of weird. I have been reviewing this series for over 2 years now. Ever since I started this channel, I've been looking at Fairy Tail, and it's kind of sad going back, because you go back, you see a fan of the series who was very optimistic about the finale. Then as you go more and more, eventually you just see me slowly lose my will to live, and here we are. I just talk shit about a series I used to enjoy for however the fuck many minutes. And yeah, I'm just so disappointed with how this series turned out. It was never amazing to begin with, but it really did have a ton of potential. Even people who hate every aspect of Fairy Tail, you have to admit that there was a lot of potential here. All of that potential just gets completely destroyed by the ending. It was so awful. So all of that being said, and believe me, I tried being generous, because this is a series that I did used to really enjoy, but I cannot give Fairy Tail any higher than a final score of 3 out of 10. It is not a series that I would ever recommend to anyone, not a fan of shonen battle manga, not a fan of fantasy stuff, because even though a lot of the early parts of this series are enjoyable, I just can't recommend it to someone knowing how everything falls completely flat. But if you are a masochist, the series is being released by Kodansha. There are about 60 volumes out, only 3 more to go. They'll be out by the end of the year. You can also read the final 17 or so volumes on Crunchyroll if you have a premium subscription. And there is an anime series that has adapted all but the final 2 arcs. The finale of the anime is expected to come next year. I will say though, during the better parts of the manga, I do think the anime actually does a bit of a better job, makes it a bit more enjoyable. There are also a bunch of movies I never want to fucking touch again because I am done with Fairy Tail. This feels amazing, guys. Oh, we're done. All of this time, all of these chapters. Holy shit. And I cannot wait to move on, read some much better series. Don't worry, I will continue to body a few series I don't like. I do have a few things in mind. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you all for sticking with me on this awful train ride into hell. But we finally survived. You can leave your thoughts on all of this in the comments below, and I'll see you guys soon for a review of what will hopefully be a much better series. So long then.